Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Mankato, where some of our space is virtual, but all of our worship is not. Our worship is entirely real and vital, life-giving and life-sustaining in all times, including in these times. All you here today, you are all welcome in this time we make sacred together. All are loved, worthy, and needed. Our human differences are sacred and make us strong. All histories and experiences, all abilities and beingness, all identities and genders, all those seeking companionship and a sense of purpose, ready to embrace and fulfill our Unitarian Universalist values. Here, you can bring your whole self. In these times and in all times, may we move into action to create the world of equity and liberation about which we dream. May we hold reverently and tenderly this one life, the here and now, of which we are certain. Before European colonization, the Dakota peoples were stewards of the land on which our fellowship building sits. In Dakota language, Ina is the word for both mother and land, a word reminding us that we are all relatives. The land does not belong to us, though it holds the history of our conflicts and our attempts at reconciliation. This congregation commits to an ongoing and intentional journey of humble connection with Indigenous peoples, characterized by understanding our shared history, accepting responsibility for restoration, and building relationship in the here and now. Thus, we seek to be good relatives. I am Lee Gansky, a member of this congregation. I'm honored and humbled to work with Zach Strasser to bring you today's service. I'd like to thank the people who are making this service happen, including greeter Deb Fitzloff, Tech Squad, Kat Clements and Andy Roberts, family/children support, Deb Fitzloff and Barb Franchino, music by Edward and Justin Gansky, and Annika Rosso Strasser as an additional presenter this morning. I have a few announcements. Here we are gathered through Zoom and in the sanctuary. We are grateful for the technology and loving volunteers making it possible for us to be one congregation. If you know of people who don't like either the Zoom format or the in-person format, please let them know that they can find next week on our website a reading copy and a video of the sermon. If you are new to the fellowship, we are grateful that you are expanding the we who is us. You can complete an online newcomer participation form if you like. There's also a form in the entryway a greeter can help you find, and also on the yellow strips in the pews. There will be a chance to visit together after the service at coffee hour in the fellowship hall as well. Fellowship is provided by Deanne Nelson and Diane Dobitz. Thanks to the two of them. Those of you in the sanctuary, we have collected the joys and sorrows that you've written so far. I have one. If there are others, you can write them down, light a candle in the back of the sanctuary, and someone will run them up here, and we'll share those during our joys and sorrows time. Having so long been unable to gather as we wish, some of us are still not able. These continue to be hard times indeed. Sunday morning worship is not yet again part of our weekly habits, and it is a feeling of belonging to community, to something larger than ourselves, that can help us get through the loneliness and alienation. No one is alone, no one, and in the words of Bill Withers, no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. So let us lean on each other in these times. And finally, at this time, I'd like to invite our president, Sarah Cyphers, up for a special announcement.
I imagine we've all been wondering who will be the new UUFM minister since Reverend Rita announced that she would be leaving. A few weeks ago, I stood before you and asked you all to consider, okay, now what? And assured you that the board was working with the search committee to find us a new minister. We also took to heart concerns about running a deficit budget as we considered options. We consulted with the UUA on multiple issues. We deliberated and discussed things extensively. We came to an agreement as a board that a one-year contract with a 3/4-time minister would best serve our needs right now, considering our size and our hopes and our dreams about growing in a sustainable way. We found a minister who we believe will be a good fit with our fellowship, and she agreed to this plan. In fact, she was so excited to join us that she agreed to start today. I'm so excited to introduce our new minister, the Reverend Diana McLean. Reverend Diana is a nearly lifelong UU. She has a Master of Divinity from Iliff School of Theology and was ordained in 2016. She has served in a variety of roles in parishes across the country, most recently at the UU Fellowship of Northfield and Michael Servetus Unitarian Society in Fridley. She also is a writer with an MFA from Naropa University and decades of experience as a freelance writer and teaching creative writing to all ages. She also created Sacred Depths with her spouse, Reverend Shay McKay, providing, quote, programs and services that dwell within the intersection of spirituality and the arts. She is currently compiling and editing a book on UU LGBTQ plus history. You may remember her from our worship service this past March when she spoke on celebrating queer lives. Please help me welcome Reverend Diana.
Thank you all. I'm so very glad to be here with you and to be starting a shared ministry together. The first time I lead worship will be the in-gathering service on September 10th, but I didn't want to wait that long to begin to meet you in person, and so here I am. I won't take up much of the worship service time this morning, but keep an eye on the weekly newsletter. It will have information about my not yet created email account, but soon, and ways that you can be in touch with me through email, phone, Zoom, in person, in the coming weeks and months ahead. And if you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer them. I will be at coffee hour today and look forward to meeting as many of you as possible. Thanks again.
Let us now move into a time of worship, shaping worth and meaning from the ordinary as a way to honor the gift of life we all share. Together, let us kindle a flame symbolizing our co-creation of sacred space. If you are joining by Zoom, please write in the chat that a chalice is lit on your street. Feel free to join me in the chalice lighting words on the note cards in your pews. Give you a second here. We are a welcoming people of diverse beliefs who commit to nourish the spirit, broaden the mind, nurture the earth, and build community. May this flame we kindle remind us to strive today and every day to love beyond belief. The title of today's sermon or talk, if you will, is A River Runs By It. The premise is that our fellowship sits in a remarkable location, and there may be some value in learning about and reflecting on that. Our fellowship is perched on a terrace above the Blue Earth River about a half a mile above the Blue Earth's confluence with the Minnesota River. Because the Blue Earth is a tributary of the Minnesota, and the Minnesota is a tributary to the Mississippi, the Blue Earth River is as true a source of the Mississippi as is Lake Itasca in northern Minnesota. At the opening of every service, we acknowledge that our fellowship sits on the homeland of the Dakota people. I imagine, however, that due to its proximity to the Blue Earth and Minnesota rivers, this was especially important and sacred land. Rivers, of course, provided food, transportation, drinking water, and protection. I presume the sacredness encompassed those things and more. Zach and I are sharing the sermon today. For myself, having spent a career as a river scientist, I'm going to first provide some facts. Then I'm going to share why rivers are important to me personally. Zach will close with a couple readings on the larger spiritual dimensions of rivers. I'd like to do the facts part of this talk with your assistance. I have a few questions that I'm going to pose. I'm going to walk around with the mic. I'm going to take a risk and give up the mic and let you all respond to some of these questions here. Okay, question number 1 is, how did the Blue Earth River come by its name? If someone would like to take that one, just raise your hand and I'll bring you the mic. Okay. I see Sean Bagley. Sean and I were on a bike trip together about 2 weeks ago. So has it been that long, Sean? It's good to see you.
Yeah, so the Blue Earth River is named, I believe, because of the Blue Earth clay that's found in the river bottoms. So the clay is, it's iron, like it has iron in it, so it, and quite a bit of oxygen, so minerals in the clay, and that gives it that color. So that's kind of why Blue Earth County.
Sean, you nailed that one. And what better person, because Sean is, of course, an artist with clay, so what better person to answer that question? The blue-green clay found along the banks of the Blue Earth River. Okay, question number 2. In what state are the headwaters of the Blue Earth River found?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going for
In what state are the headwaters of the Blue Earth River found? Sue?
I think it creeps into Iowa and comes up to the town of Blue Earth and then up north from here. So I think Iowa.
Did you want to weigh in on this one too?
It is up there by Lake Traverse and Blue Earth and Big Stone.
Okay, well, those are, we'll cover those answers quickly. Sue was correct that the Blue Earth River headwaters are in northern Iowa, and it flows up through the city of Blue Earth and on down here to Mankato. Marlena talked about South Dakota. That's the headwaters of the Minnesota River out there. So yes, indeed. Okay, excellent. We're doing great here. Just have 6 questions. What river flows into the Blue Earth just a few miles upstream of our fellowship? Diane's had her hand raised twice now, so I'm going way back there.
I'm guessing, but I think it's the Le Sueur.
Sarah wants to weigh in on that one too, I think.
Just agreeing with LeSueur because it's my backyard.
That's right. Sarah and Andy and family are perched above the LeSueur River. Yes, that's correct. Just upstream of here, if people have been out to Jack McGowan's farm, Jack McGowan's farm sits at the confluence of the LeSueur River and the Blue Earth River. Excellent. What are the names of some other tributaries to the Blue Earth? And now, since we brought the LeSueur into the picture, what are the names of some of the tributaries to the Blue Earth and LeSueur rivers?
Big Cobb and Maple.
Is there a couple? Any others? Denny?
Watton.
Okay, those are, we got one more back there. Yeah, I'm getting a workout here. Diane, you should have sat up front.
Minneopa Creek?
Lots of tributaries. Blue Earth County is a county that's remarkably rich in creeks and rivers, many miles. I think I should have researched this, but I think it's like the county that has the most river miles in the state or something. And there are many others, but those are some of the big ones. Okay, two more. There were once two dams on the lower Blue Earth River. The Rapidan Dam still stands for now. Where was the other one? Where was the other dam on the lower Blue Earth River? Connie?
Sibley Park.
That's correct. There was a low, I guess what they call a low dam or a low head dam right at Sibley Park. You can still see some of the remnants there. I don't know the exact time frame. I feel like early 20th century, created sort of a swimming beach down there. There was actually a really good article in the Blue Earth County Historical Society newsletter a couple years ago on that. Very interesting. Okay, finally, what two types of bedrock are exposed along the banks of the lower Blue Earth River? This is the tough one for the geologists in the crowd.
Well, I think Casota stone is there, the limestone.
Okay. Okay, we got one. What two types of bedrock are exposed along the banks of the lower Blue Earth River?
They didn't do the answer.
Okay, the answer was limestone, and that's indeed one. Anyone else? There's May, speaking of, she wanted to sneak in unnoticed. So most of Blue Earth County is like completely covered with just glacial deposits, clay and sands and gravels, things like that. So it's really only in the river valleys that the bedrock is exposed. That's the ancient underlying rock, and there's limestone and sandstone actually, and you can see both of those right. If you look over the bank here, right outside of our parking lot, you will see both those types of rock. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, how are rivers important to me personally? Perhaps some of you might share some of these feelings. Rivers soothe me. The gurgling sound as their water moves over and around rocks, the dancing of light off their surface. When I scramble down the bank just off the northwest corner of our parking lot and get down along the Blue Earth River, I feel a great release. This despite the highway bridge, the railroad bridge, and a gargantuan soybean processing facility just a few hundred feet away. I don't know if it's because you're lower down than those things, but when you're down by the river here below the fellowship, their noises seem muted and distant, to me anyway. Rivers connect me to history, both natural and human. Just mentioned the two types of bedrock exposed along the banks of the lower Blue Earth. That exposure represents 10,000 years of down cutting through that glacially deposited material to an ancient time where shallow seas covered this area. Dakota history and European history lives along the river. I brought some props here. They're in front of the podium there. A clay jar, an elixir bottle, and a St. Louis Brick Company brick. These are just a few of my finds, refuse from the past, history. Rivers give me hope. In this area that is dominated by such intensive agriculture, the river valleys are small ribbons of nature where one can find an astounding variety of plants and animals. Any future restoration of ecological balance to south central Minnesota will, in my view, must, in my view, radiate out from the river valleys. Rivers still provide food and water. It is so satisfying to me to be able to offer my extended family and friends meals of walleye and catfish caught on the Blue Earth just below the fellowship or on the Minnesota River. Our drinking water in Mankato is largely a mix of Blue Earth and Minnesota River water, filtered by approximately 50 feet of sand that lies beneath these rivers. This water is not pure and pristine by any measure, but it is certainly drinkable with proper treatment. Finally, rivers are a source of immense joy to me. Canoeing, kayaking, swimming, fishing, snowshoeing on their frozen surfaces, picking up rocks and shells on a sandbar. I especially love our rivers in the fall when the water tends to clear up and has a turquoise tint to it. I should mention that the Blue Earth River is not just a source of joy for me. If people who've been around this fellowship know that there are vehicles frequently parked in the corner of our parking lot, and people go down and fish largely, but sometimes they're just poking around. And these are people that, I know some of these people are people who don't have boats or cabins or that sort of access to water resources, and they love our spot down here. They love this spot. It's not our spot. They love the river in our area. So to counter all of this romanticism, let me end my part by acknowledging that in many ways our rivers are in poor ecological condition. They often turn muddy during even modest rain events or green during hot, dry spells. Their banks erode at rates far in excess of what they should be. They often contain high levels of nitrates and other pollutants. The amount of fish a person should eat is limited due to contaminants absorbed by the fish. To counter this dreary picture, however, let me say that I still find our rivers wondrous, and I know that ecological recovery is possible.
As we conclude our time of worship this morning, let us make a promise that through all this threshold time, we will remain committed to sustained and robust relationship with each other. to the vision of our faith community, to the values of Unitarian Universalism, and into the interdependent web holding us all. As we speak our unison words, I invite you to extinguish your chalice or your candle at home. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again.